Hey guys, Chris at Hoodoo here with you. I want to do a quick video with my buddy Nick on how to change the steering cables. We're going to do this on a Tempest 120p. So we'll show you how to pull the steering handle, what it kind of looks like underneath here, and then run a new stainless steel cables down to the rudder, and then how to help you set up the rudder at the end to make sure you're ready to track straight when you're on the water. Let's get into it.
All right, so the first step is removing the steering handle and faceplate. On the Tempest and Voyager series, you'll use a Phillips screwdriver. On the Impulse series, you'll use an Allen wrench instead. So once the steering handle is removed, you'll want to loosen the set screw on the pulley that holds the steering cable and remove any old or worn out steering cable or rope. On the Impulse series, the cables are attached to a T-bar instead of a pulley, so you'll simply cut and remove the old cables from that T-bar. Now take your new steering cable and run it through the pulley. Make sure the tag ends are even on both sides before you tighten everything down. On the Impulse series, you'll just create a loop using the wire thimbles and crimps on each side of the T-bar. Those thimbles are there to reduce wear on the cable and protect it from rubbing on the T-bar. You'll see here the underside of the Tempest steering handle, you've got a pulley and that set screw. Make sure that's super tight before you run any of the steering cables back in. On the Tempest and the Voyager series, the tubing runs from the handle to the stern of the kayak, so it's fairly simple to run the wires. On the Impulse, it's open, but the good thing is there's a larger hatch. You can get your hand in there and make sure you can guide all the steering cables back to where they need to go. So once you've got the steering cables run, reinstall the faceplate, and just make sure this is plastic, so make sure you don't over tighten anything. I would not recommend using an impact drill, and if you're using an electric drill, make sure the torque settings are turned way down. Make sure the handle moves freely, and on the Tempest and Voyager, there is supposed to be a little bit of wobble. That's totally normal. So now moving towards the back of the kayak, here's the hardware we're going to need: eyebolts, wing nuts, locking nuts, and crimps. So we're going to first want to pull all the slack out of the steering cables, and then make sure that steering handle is facing straight ahead. That way we make sure we attach the eyebolts to the steering cable so that everything is straight. So we're going to grab an eyebolt and a wing nut, run the eyebolt through the opening on the rudder and then the wing nut so that there's about an even amount of thread on both sides of the rudder, as you see here. This is going to give us some adjustability once we get everything tightened down. And then we're going to grab one of the crimps, slide it onto the steering cable, and then grab the end of the steering cable and run it through the eyelet of the eyebolt, as you see here. And then once we run it through the eyebolt, go back through the crimp and then pull everything tight. Make sure, especially when you're doing this first one, as you're pulling everything tight, that the steering handle is still facing straight ahead. Pro tip, if you want to use a piece of tape or something to hold the steering handle straight, that also works well here, or just keep an eye on it. So once you pull everything tight, get that the crimp as close to the eyebolt as you can, and then crimp everything down tight. Repeat the same process on the other side, running the crimp on, running the cable through the eyebolt, and then back through the crimp, and then pull everything tight. Which it's a little bit easier once you've got the first one done because it does kind of pull against itself. Once you got that done, we're going to go up to the steering handle and just test everything out. Make sure that the rudder moves in the correct direction, which looks like it does. Finally, make sure the cotter pin is installed on the rudder pin so that the rudder stays deployed while you're out on the water. You'll also want to install the nylock nuts behind the wing nuts so vibration during transport or use doesn't allow the wing nuts to loosen or wobble themselves off. Cut the tag ends of the cables off, and then you guys are done and ready to hit the water.